Welcome back to the factory. This week, all the schmick-looking blackboards we've been working on finally have a name. It's Makerverse. We'll also talk about a 5V and 3V compatible SD card adapter and a power timer to take your projects off the bench and into the wild on battery power. Let's get started. And first up, we announced the brand Makerverse last week. If you've been following the journey of the perfect protoboards on the factory but aren't subscribed to the Core Electronics newsletter, Makerverse is the brand that we are releasing these Maker Essential products under. So if you want to learn more about that, you can head over to the link in the description to see the protoboards on the Core Electronics website. And that also means I get to stop being coy with my strategically placed pieces of gaffer tape over the brand on all these prototypes. So now I can just show you in the flesh, the Makerverse SD card module. That'll be our first prototype for the day. We started working on an SD card module because data logging projects are so popular in the Maker community, and so we just had to be a part of that with this SD card adapter. So this is a breadboard compatible adapter. It's actually one of the few modules that we are considering making with the header pins already fitted, and that's because these kind of projects often find their way into breadboard development, where you just want to experiment with an SD card on the breadboard using, say, an Arduino or a Raspberry Pi Pico. So in a lot of other projects, the headers are kind of optional, like say PicoDev, you've already got a guaranteed way to connect to the device. We've gone for an SMD-only approach for this adapter. So this is basically all the components are on one side of the board and we keep the other side completely bare. And that way we can send it through our production line and just place all the parts on one side. Requirements for a project like this is that it must be compatible with 5V or 3.3V operation. Even though most modern development platforms, the operating voltage is coming down to say 3.3V, something like this, you just got to make it compatible with like the classic Arduino Uno experience. And so that means that you need to put in a voltage regulator because you need to be able to power the thing from 5V, and also a 5V tolerant buffer. Let's take a look at the circuit. Here we have the SD card module schematic, and we'll work backwards from the SD card connector. The chip select, MOSI, and clock lines are all buffered through from the upstream microcontroller through a 74LVC125, which is essentially just a buffer that happens to have 5V tolerant inputs. So even though this device will be powered by the onboard 3.3V system, those 5V tolerant inputs means that it'll just pass a 3.3V signal, or it will shift down a 5V signal from, say, an Arduino Uno at Mega 328. And so that means depending on the system voltage that you're using, you'll either power it direct from a 3.3V microcontroller through the 3.3V pin, or if you're using a 5V device, you'll power it through the 5V pin, and that will be regulated by an onboard AMS 1117. The AMS 1117 is a pretty jelly bean voltage regulator, but we've opted for the slightly smaller package, the SOT 223 package, just so we can squeeze this board a little bit smaller. Otherwise, that's really it. You've just got some filtering capacitance, a switchable onboard LED so you can enable or disable that power LED if you wish, and just a few resistors to stop the buffer from oscillating. And so on the bench, when you mount it to your breadboard or to your circuit, all you'll see is the rear side of the PCB with just some nice artwork on it. And so why bother with this logic level shifting chip if you could just say, bang in a voltage divider and just shift the signals down like that? If you were to voltage divide down your 3V signals, you would come in just under the minimum high level that is acceptable for most devices. Another consideration is that we wanted this device to run at a pretty generous speed, and so we've been able to successfully test this at 25 MHz with our test jig. Now, the keen-eyed viewers might have noticed that the MISO line, so the data output line of the SD card, just comes straight out and goes straight to the connector. And you think, well, hang on, that's a 3.3V signal going to an Arduino Uno. Aren't they only good for 5V? Well, down on page 258 of the datasheet, we have the DC characteristics for the Atmega 328, and the input high voltage acceptable is 0.6 VCC. 0.6 times 5V is 3V. So you're guaranteed to get a high signal for a 3V signal. And that is why we don't need to buffer out or do any funny business with the signal coming out of the SD card, only in, to protect the SD card, which must run at 3.3V. Moving on to our next prototype, this is the Makerverse power timer. And this is a device that can make it a bit easier to take your project off the bench and make it battery powered. Battery powered projects are challenging. Doing actual power management shutting down peripheries, having like a good power efficient circuit design can be a real barrier to just taking your project into the wild and making it battery powered. And this is intended to bridge the gap. What this does is it powers your project, say from a battery or just from voltage that you supply at one of the pins. And periodically, depending on the time you set, it will apply power to your project. Your project powers up, it does whatever it needs to do. Maybe it reads some sensors and logs to an SD card. And then when it's finished, you send a done signal back to this device. So just a digital high signal to the done pin. The power timer will then completely cut power to the project until the timer elapses again for the next cycle. And so you can configure this to power your project from anywhere between once every 15 seconds to 2 hours, just using these dip switches. And so we have this row of dip switches here, and the idea is that you configure the time that you want to set using the position of these switches, where you can go from just having switch A on, which is a 15-second cycle, all the way up to 2 hours if all the switches are off. There's even a provision for a user resistor to go in there. So if you take you make some custom resistor out of a bunch of resistors from your drawer, you can put it in there and get a custom time that you want. So here's a graph of the times that are possible. On the bottom row is our design, and the X's indicate time in seconds for just one of the switches. So this leftmost X is the first switch, and that would be for 15 seconds, all the way up to an hour and 2 hours. What we were going for here was to try to get as useful a spread of times as possible. So we have our first switch here at 15 seconds, our second switch here at 1 minute, 5 minutes, 20 minutes, 1 hour, and 2 hours. Like real natural kind of sampling intervals. And then these red dots that are appearing are what can be achieved by using combination of switches. So if you turn on 2 switches, you'll get some time that is less than both of them, and that just gives you a few more options. We based this design off a design by SparkFun that uses the same timing IC, the TPL 5110. And we've graphed their times as well because we noticed that there was a bit of a gap that we could potentially fill just by changing the design of the circuit slightly. I won't get too into the weeds with how we chose these values. It's really just applying the formulas in the datasheet. But it really just comes down to choosing the unique values for these resistors R1 through R7 to give a nice breakdown of what times are available. Another feature we included on board was to include a reverse polarity protection Schottky diode that can also be bridged out, because we know that if you somehow back power this timer, say if you're powering an Arduino Uno and power comes back through because you've plugged the thing into USB, that can be really bad for the TPL 5110. So we included this reverse polarity protect diode, but if you know what you're doing and you just don't want to suffer that small drop in power that you'll get across the diode, it can be bridged out. And of course, in power projects, every drop, every joule counts. So we've included a jumper to disable the active LED as well. And this device is kind of amazing. It operates down like somewhere in the nanoamps when it's standing by, just waiting for that timer to elapse. So these resistors aren't actually in circuit all the time. So it appears the moment you power this chip up, it samples what the time ought to be. And then basically it doesn't look at those resistors again until you remove power and apply it again. And that might be how it can keep its power consumption so low. TPL 5110, needless to say, very impressive device, super low power consumption. And so yeah, hopefully that just makes it a little bit easier to take your projects off the bench and into the wild. And final order of business for the day, a nearly perfect Protoboard. We're working on yet another Makerverse Protoboard, this time compatible with SOIC or other SMD packages. So the point here is that it's just like any other perf board. It has that standard 100 thou grid of 1mm holes. So you can put your dip packages in, put in pin headers, whatever. But here's the thing, the pads are much smaller, and in between we can fit little islands so that if you were to put, say, an SOIC onto this, you would have a pad for every single pin. And this is great if you want to break out from through-hole parts and start experimenting with some SMD parts. Or maybe, for a lot of good parts, they're only available in surface mount technology. Like high-quality operational amplifiers, high-speed digital circuits. A lot of these things are only available surface mount. And so we're kind of wrapping up the line with this one. We're doing this one last because it's a bit more in the esoteric space, But man, I think you can get some really cool stuff done with it. We took a run at getting this board done using hot air leveled solder finish, and the user experience was pretty so-so. You can see here where we lifted one of the very small pads, and that strange looking geometry, we've seen that before in boards like this, and it appears to be so that you can easily create solder bridges. But at least in this case, it's actually far too easy to create solder bridges between these pads. Quite frustrating to use at this point. So we've got a design revision in the works where we will have mask on the front just to help with the solder bridging so that you can make them when you want to and avoid them when you don't. But we've also simplified the geometry a fair bit because these like kind of arrowhead interlocking chevrons, it just isn't really working out. And we think that maybe with a simpler geometry, it'll actually be easier to look at the board and understand what's going on. So we're respinning the board with Enig Gold and we'll give it a test drive. That's just the front side of the board. On the back side, we have a continuous plane that's isolated from all the pads. That means that you can set this to be your ground plane, and then all you have to do is solder from that plane onto one of the pads to make a ground connection. And this is where a board like this will really come into its own for high speed or high frequency designs. By having like a good ground plane on the back, you might be able to squeeze a circuit on here that can handle like 50, maybe even 100 megahertz signals. Whereas, on a breadboard, you're really capped at like a couple of megahertz before it's just, the capacitance is just too much. On a more classic style of perf board like this one, where you just have square pads, that'll still be good for a few megahertz, like maybe up to 10 megahertz. But it's really that ground plane that's going to make all the difference. And yeah, you really just don't know until you try to build something on the thing. So we've got that design revision coming in. We're looking forward to, making some kind of oscillator on it and getting the scope out. In any case, that's all I have for you today. Let us know if there's anything you'd like to see in our range of Maker Essential hardware that is Makerverse. And until next time, thanks for watching.